A couple things. I want to start with some gratitude for John Stocks and the NEA for allowing us to use this space, for Alan Davis, who has funded this conference, and funded Common Cause's ability to do these kinds of conferences for the next 10 years and beyond. He has set up an endowment where we try and raise money, and he gives, and there's a 4-to-1 match for that, which we are very appreciative of, and it's very important. Special thanks to Marilyn Carpintero, who has her own big event coming up soon, who was simultaneously planning her wedding as she was planning this conference, if you can imagine that. So a hand for Marilyn, because we wish her the best of luck, and Mike, in a week, or a little more than a week. Also, thank you to Jenny Flanagan and Keisha Morris, who were the team that put this together. Lots of work. And also all of the program and Common Cause staff that pitched in so many different ways. Our comms team, led by Scott Swenson, our incredible digital team, Marissa Valeri, Jack Mumby, Izzy Bronstein, and Jesse Littlewood, all of them who helped us both with our live streaming and tweeting. We have had a lot of people following us, and also I did want to mention that we also got quite a bit of press in the last day. Edward Snowden obviously is someone who draws a lot of attention, and it was highlighted in Time, NBC, The Guardian, CNBC, The Hill, The Intercept, and many other outlets. And we also had the Washington Post, the Baltimore Sun, and others covering Marilyn Mosby's address, as well as Michigan reporters following the Flint panel. So it's terrific that both through social media, there's reach beyond this in live streaming, but also that we were connecting in a broader way, and thanks to our comms team for helping to make that happen. So we wanted to do something a little bit different, and that's interesting. I keep hitting that. It looks like it's cycling through, so I'll try and stay away from it. We wanted to do something different with this conference and sound the alarm about the plutocracy that we face. We've heard lots of people talk about this, but this really is a challenging moment, and also one where it's very important that we figure out ways to come together as people. The other side is going to always have more money in almost any issue that we work on. What we have are people. Polls show people are on our side. If we can organize and galvanize, as the DI has done such a terrific job of doing at the national level, we have state chapters around the country and work with so many groups on the ground that are part of national organizations and that are independent of those. And I think that there is tremendous power in the work that's going on at the state level. When I worked at the state level, I knew you couldn't get anything done if you didn't work with others. At the time, I was a one-person shop, and it grew eventually. But when I started, I knew I had to get to know people and work with them on issues that we cared about. We came together and talked about issues, and one of the beauties of it is it's not a top-down. There was no national common cause saying you must work on this issue. We took a look at the challenges we faced in our democracy and decided what made the most sense. What laws did we have on the books? What were the problems? What did we want to achieve? And it isn't talking about, for example, a multiple match or anything like that. It is, we want policies that reflect our values. We want to support workers' rights. We care about our environment. We care about what our kids eat. And so we looked at a public financing program. We wanted to see people that come from unrepresented constituencies to have the chance to run for office. And we have candidates, African American and Latino, that had a chance. They weren't wealthy. They weren't connected to special interests or lobbyists who would give them a lot of money. But a citizens election program that we enacted in 2005 gave them the opportunity to run. And it gave donors who gave $5 or $50 to have a voice in the process. And we had voters talk about why that matters to them. Then once elected, this legislature that took place, 74% ran under the public financing program in 2008, they did things differently immediately. So environmental protections that environmentalists tried to pass for more than 2 decades passed in the first month of that inaugural citizens election program. We saw earned income tax credit, the first state to paid sick leave, environmental reforms, and many other reforms move because the lobbyists did not have the stranglehold or the same power, and that different kinds of people were elected and could come into this system and say, I care about the juvenile justice system, I care about the death penalty, I care about environmental issues or sugary drinks in my kids' schools, and they did something about it. And the kinds of things that we are facing now are about taking on power. And when you take on power, these are not easy fights. They're not going to be fights where people are, electeds are going to put their arms around our shoulders and say, this was great, we were so excited to do it. Myrna held up a map that showed that in this election, we are going to have a record number of states put up barriers to participation. Those are the things that we need to fight against. We are, one of the things we also wanted to do in this conference is bring real people in who could talk about how, barriers and challenges in our democracy are creating real problems for their lives. We have to remember to connect our work to what's happening in people's lives. And it's interesting to me because in some ways I think we've gone back in time. When Common Cause was first came into being, John Gardner in 1970 took out an ad that said everybody's organized by the people, but the people join us to be the people's voice. We had to literally work to pry open the halls of government. You couldn't go in Congress and see a committee vote. Many meetings were behind closed doors. We couldn't find out any information about how people voted. There was seniority and a secret cabal of, deciding how committee chairmanships were. These are the kinds of things we focused on in Congress, in state houses, and at the local level. The kinds of things we looked at were freedom of information laws, transparency, and other things. And it's interesting to me that the kinds of failures we're seeing are some of those same basic issues. People's access to information and transparency, accountability, having a voice in the process. We are back in some ways to where we started. But we need to be looking at innovative ways to approach these issues. We're not dusting off things that we did in the 1970s. We're trying to look at how do we deal with big data? Are there ways that we can use it to empower people so they have more information? So instead of an FOI system where we are, you ask for freedom of information requests, you have to be a lawyer practically to write it, or you have to get them to write it so that you can request information. Instead, we need to move to state and local governments posting data online. Use FOI requests to try and figure out and prioritize what are the kinds of things people want to know and put that out there. So we can't be looking at the same old reforms we did then. We have to be innovating and thinking about engaging more and more people. And the way to do that is to focus on what they need and hear. And that's the kind of stuff you get when you're working at the local level. We have big things to do moving forward, and we were inspired by so many of the speakers that we had today, and see this as an opportunity to continue to work and expand the groups that came here and talked about some of the issues that were at stake. And so we hope that you can join us December 6th and 7th, which will be the date, location to be determined, for our next conference, as we start to think about where there are opportunities to take on that power and win. So thanks again, and I wanted to remind everybody to look at their evaluation form, give us feedback. What do you want to hear? What do you want to see us do in December? Because we're very open to addressing and looking at all kinds of issues. So thanks again.